Hello, friends. Welcome to my channel, Learn with Roshan. So, today we are going to discuss another very interesting topic, which is related to uh, source control, right? So, for most of the developers, this is a very familiar topic, and especially today I'm going to discuss about SQL source control because we are very much used for the code base level of source control, right? And this is bit different to the usual code base level source control that we engage with in our day to day activities. And today I'm going to focus about SQL source control. Okay, so how are we going to manage our SQL database objects within source control? Okay, great. Let's get into the topics that we are going to discuss today. So mainly this tutorial is based on source control with Redgate. Okay, and also I'm going to involve Azure DevOps with it, right? So today we are going to mainly discuss about how we could use Redgate source control plugin with Azure DevOps, right? So these are the topics that we are going to cover. Okay, introduction to Redgate source control, introduction to Azure DevOps, and then we are going to see a demo practically, and we can discuss accordingly. Okay, right. So first of all, what is Redgate SQL source control? Okay, so Redgate SQL source control is actually a plugin which we can get installed into SQL Server Management Studio or the Enterprise Manager of SQL Server, right? Um, it is actually a plugin which allows us to link a database into source control. Now, Redgate supports a variety of version control systems such as Git, TFS, as well as SVN, subversion. Okay, right. Then, what is Azure DevOps? Okay, so this is also very familiar product to most of the developers. So, Azure DevOps is basically a product that comes under Microsoft Azure, which facilitates the application development lifecycle. Okay, so it facilitates most of the steps involved in an application development lifecycle. So I have mentioned some of the features that it supports, such as project management, which allows us to prepare all the user stories and carry out a project with agile principles and practices. So Azure DevOps has the support for it. Okay, I'm not going to speak more about the project management aspect because our main focus today is to discuss about source control. So Azure DevOps also supports source control repository management. So it supports various source control technologies such as Git, TFS, etc. Okay, and also it supports release management. Okay, by allowing developers and DevOps engineers to create CI/CD pipeline with it so that it supports proper release management. Okay, then let's move on to a demo. So in this demo, basically, I'm going to discuss about uh, or rather I'm going to take a particular database in my local SQL server, which is called students, a very basic database with just two tables. Okay, simply for the demonstration purpose. And we are going to look at how we can commit the database to source control via Redgate. And then I will also discuss about how we can migrate data also, that is the actual data in the SQL database, to source control using Redgate. Then also, as the next step, I'm going to discuss how two developers can commit and share the database changes. Okay, right. So let's get started. As the first step, now I have an Azure subscription. Okay, and this is my Azure DevOps uh, page, right? And also, uh, I told you about Redgate. So this is the official site of Redgate source control, SQL source control, and I will mention this URL in the description box of this video tutorial. Okay, fine. Then let's get started. So first of all, in Azure DevOps, the first step is to create a new project, right? So let's say we are going to create a student information system, and for that we are going to create a project in Azure DevOps, right? So I will provide the name as student DB, right? Then description student database. So I will make this repository public, or I will make this uh, project public, right? Okay, for the moment, let's get it created. So our main purpose is to uh, look at the repository aspect of this project rather than focusing on the project management or the release management. We simply want to link our database to source control. Okay, right. We simply want to link our database to source control. Okay, so by default, right, by default in an Azure DevOps project, it supports the source control technology Git. So let me get back into project creation page once more, right? I want to show you something which I missed actually. So this is the project I created newly, student database. So before I go inside, let me click on this new project again. And in the advanced section, you will see that there's an option to select the version control system that you want to work with. So here by default, it selects Git. Okay. So we are going to use Git in this case to link our database with source control. So as the source control technology, we are going to use Git. Fine. So I'm not going to create a project again. Okay. Right. Then let's get into the student DB project. Okay. Then this is the code repository. Now, as you can see, there are no branches here. So we'll have to initiate a branch. Okay. So we'll initiate the main branch. Okay. Initiate main branch with a readme or git ignore. So I'm going to add a readme file as well as I'm going to add a git ignore. Okay. And I'm going to use Visual Studio as my code editor. So you have to select git ignore Visual Studio. Then click on initialize. So the main branch is created for you. Okay. The next step would be to clone the branch from Azure. So click on clone and then keep this setting as it is. And as the IDE, I'm going to use Visual Studio. Then open Microsoft Visual Studio. Okay. Okay. So let's first wait until it allows us to clone the repository. So let me create a folder, right? The Redgate. So I have this folder. I will create a folder as std db. Okay. Then let me select the folder. Right. Let's clone the main branch. Okay. So we'll wait a bit until it gets cloned into our local folder. So it's cloning in progress. Okay, so now as you can see, the branch is cloned into our local folder. If you go to the folder, see the files have been cloned from the remote repository or the main branch. And then let's go to SQL Server. Now in SQL Server, this is the database that I will consider, right, to link into source control. If you go to this database and see, there are two basic tables. Okay, one table is called mentor, which has ID, name, and date of birth, right? And it has data. It has data, right? Okay. Then the next step, I have student database or student table. Sorry, student table. I have five columns: ID, name, age, mentor, enroll date. In student table also, I have these uh, data, right? Six records, right? Then I have an SP here. Get student info. Very basic SP, right? Don't worry about primary foreign keys and relationships at this moment because our purpose is simply to uh, link the database into source control. So we are going with very basic settings. So we have a stored procedure here and see we are going to select these three columns from the student table. That's all, right? SP get student info. Now we are going to link this database into source control, right? Now as I said, when it comes to Redgate, okay, when it comes to Redgate, it will allow you to try out a trial version of Redgate so that you can download and install this, and a plugin will be installed like this into your SQL Server Management Studio. Okay, and if you are satisfied, then you can decide to purchase it later on. Okay, right. Then you click on student and then you click on SQL source control. Okay, right. Next step is now we have to link the database first. So it says this database is not linked to source control. So use the setup tab. Okay. Now link to my source control system. Link this database to Git. Click next. Git. Okay. Then I have to select my folder. What is the folder? stddb. Now I have selected my folder and click on link. Okay, so it will take some time to link. Okay, now it's linked to source control. Now you will see a different color is applied to the database, which indicates that this database is linked to the source control. What is the source control? This one, student database or student DB repository. This is the repository, student DB repository. Under repos, you have just one repository, right? Student DB. Okay. Then now, do you have anything to get from source control or get latest? No, right? This is the very initial level of commit. We are simply going to commit the database first into source control. So there's nothing to get latest. So we get into the commit tab, right? So in the commit tab, as you can see, there are four objects that it shows. There are two tables, mentor and student, and there are two SPs, as I said. So what you have to do is now provide a comment as initial commit and then click on commit. Okay, right? And then it says there are two commits in your local repository that can be pushed into remote repository. You have to push. Click OK. Right now, as you can see, in the Azure DevOps Student DB repository, if you refresh, okay, you will see that your database objects are now in source control. Your two tables are in source control. Your SPs are in source control. Okay, right. That's the first part. Okay. Now the next part. What is the next part? Now I said that in the presentation, okay, we are going to look at how we could do an initial commit of a database to source control, and then as the next part, how can we migrate data to source control as well. Then we're going to look at that step now, how to migrate the data to source control. Okay, now as I showed you, there are tables in the mentor table, there are tables in the student table, right? Okay, now how are we going to migrate those data, right? Okay, right click on student database, and then there's an option called other source control task. Under that, link or unlink static data. There you have to select these two tables, save and close. Right now, if you see, it allows us to commit the uh, insert script of these two tables. Mentor table, you have these two records, and student table, you have these records. Okay, okay. So mentor table, you have two records. Student table, you have six records. Right now, it shows us the um, insert scripts accordingly. Here, yes. Okay. Now I'm going to give another comment, committing the uh, data of the two tables. Okay, then push, right? Okay, now if you refresh, you will see the data also. Okay, great. Now what is the next step? Let's say another developer comes into your team. Now he wants to get this database. Okay, now how can he achieve that? Right, I'm going to show that within the same SQL server itself, right? Just assume another new developer joins to your team and he wants to sync up this database with the data, with the data. Okay, let me show you that. Let's say we ask the developer to create a database from the scratch. We say you have to create a database like this, any name, right? Students dev. This is another database, right? Let's say this is the folder that he is going to link with the source control. So I'm going to create a new folder for him. Okay, sdd dev. Okay, right. Okay, now what I'm going to do is, let's say this developer comes here, right? Developer comes here and he wants to clone the uh, repository to his local folder. So he comes here, clone, same as we did before, Visual Studio, right? Let me close Visual Studio for a moment, okay, and then open it again. Yes. Okay, right now at this time I'm going to select the new developers folder where it is std new or std dev, sorry, std dev, then click. So we'll wait a bit until it gets cloned to his local folder. Right now it got cloned. Okay, if you take std dev, all the data, stored procedures, everything has been cloned to his local folder. Okay, now I what I'm going to do is I'm going to link this student dev database into source control. So first we have to do that, right? First we have to do that. Okay, link this database to source control. This is the option that we have to select. Link databases to source control and then click on next. Go to the folder of the developer std dev. We have already cloned the repository. We have already cloned the repository. Okay, link. Okay, link successful. Okay, right now does the developer has anything to commit? No, right? He has to get latest. So go to this tab. There you have all the things that you could get from the uh, repository. What are they? The data, mentor data, student data, mentor schema, student schema, as well as the two SPs. Simply click on pull from Git remote repository. Apply changes. Okay. Now if you refresh this database, okay, you will see everything synced up from the uh, remote repository with data. With data. There you go. Now the developer does a change to this SP. Okay, this is the third task that we are going to look at. How two developers can commit and share the database changes. Okay, simply the developer modifies an SP. Let's say he adds the mentor field and execute. Now he has done a change. Okay, now if you go to the commit section, there is one change to commit. He has added mentor. See, now the developer will add a comment, change the SP, commit. Okay, right. So it's been committed to the remote repository. Push. Okay, now you have to push it. Right. Now it will be committed to the remote repository. Now let's go to student database and see the SP at this moment. Refresh the student database and see the SP at this moment. Nothing, right? Mentor field is not there. Simply get latest changes from source control. Okay. Get latest changes from source control. Pull from source control. Pull all changes. Right. You will see this SP. Click on this SP and you will see the mentor field coming into the students database. Click on this apply changes. Done. Now if you refresh the student database, okay, you will have the mentor field. So this is how you are going to simply link a store database, SQL database into source control using Redgate. Okay, I hope you got to know something new and you learned something new, which is very important. So, if you feel this tutorial is useful, please like, comment, and subscribe. And also, please send your valuable comments to learnwithrushan@gmail.com. Thank you so much. Happy coding.